Hello everyone, hi, welcome to the channel of Wall Street Mojo. Friends, today we have a topic under us, revenue versus earnings. Well, one of the most discussed topic around because there's always a confusion between revenue and earnings. Let's try and understand this in a detailed format to get a more insight regarding this particular topic. So, revenue is also a synonym with what we call as income, which is what a firm generates from the daily business activities. So, in most simplistic terms, the revenue is the income generated from the business when a service or product is provided to a customer. If you see for earnings, on the other hand, are the sort of, you can say, inflow of money after all the expenses, that is profit from the business in their daily operations. And it is basically the amount, you can say, the amount that has been earned, right, by the business from the day-to-day activities. So it can be achieved by product sold or service availed by the customer. Let's understand the formula for revenue. Revenue is calculated as the number of units of goods or products that has been sold into price per unit, right? And if you see for earnings, are the amount remaining after taking out all the expenses or the amount of depreciation of the underlying asset. Right. So it can also be stated in a very simplistic fashion is that revenue minus all the expenses is equal to earnings, right? And assuming that the expenses are less than the revenues, the company will have a so-called profit. So it can also be derived that if the expenses, if you say that if the expenses, if they are greater than, if they are more than the revenue, then there will be a thing called net loss, which a company may have to suffer. So in this particular tutorial, we'll understand both of the similar terms, that is your revenue or earnings, in a complete detailed form. We'll also look at the comparative analysis of the revenue earnings over here. So let's begin with revenue versus earnings with the help of an infographics. Let's begin with the meaning. Okay, revenue can be defined as the income that has been generated, that is the sales that is got generated from the business when the service or the product that has been goods is been sold. If you are giving a service, if you are selling a goods, then probably you are selling something, and in that scenario, that will generate income for the company, which is your revenue. Earnings can be defined as the bottom line profit after excluding the expenses of the business from the business activity. So if you don't have revenue, you don't have earnings. So revenue is like a driver for earning. If they don't have revenue, there'll be no earnings. Earnings is completely dependent on revenue, and it will deduct all the expenses to come out with the final number. Now, what exactly this is all about? See, if you see for the revenue, it's all about income of the firm, right? That's the revenue, that is the sales of the firm. But if you see for earnings, it's all about the profit made by the firm. This is the income of the firm, and this is the profit that has even exactly been made by the firm. Let's understand the measurement criteria. If you see for the revenue measures the income generation of the business. See, as you saw, it's about the income, it's about the profit that has been made by the firm. In case of the revenue, it measures the income generation of the business, and earning measures the profit of the business. This is the income generation part, and this is the profit of the. Now, how it is calculated? It's quite simple. Revenue can be calculated by the number of units that you are selling into, that is, you will multiply with the price at which you are selling per unit. So price per unit into the number of units that you are selling to the customers. Earnings can be calculated by deducting all the expenses, taxes, amortization, depreciation from the revenue. When you multiply this to, let's say you get 1 million as the amount and you have half a million of this expenses, then you get 5 lakh as your earnings. Let's see what exactly its impact is on. If you see for revenue, when the degree of revenue is medium, it depicts more income and inflow for the firm. When the degree of revenue, if it is medium, it depicts more income and inflow for the firm. And when the degree of earning, if this is higher, then it depicts more profit or gain from the firm, or vice versa the case. Now, what exactly is in relation with? So the degree of revenue is usually medium, as we just understood here, and it does not account for expenses because expenses have been accounted by the earnings in the income statement, but earning has the direct relationship with the profit and cash gains in the income statement. So you can say expenses are accounted here, and earning will be having complete straightforward relationship with the profit and the cash gains that has been made in the income statement. Now, how much this is preferred? I mean, revenue and earnings, how much this is preferred? Revenue is preferred on a very lower scale, but if you see people or the stakeholders or the investors, clients, customers, suppliers, banks, institutions, governments, they will all look at your earnings first, because you may be selling, let's say over here, 100 products at a price of 100, so $10,000 is your sales. But what if your expenses are actually eating up your revenue? So your earnings, let's say your expenses is also 10,000, then in that scenario your earning goes to zero. Does it make any sense? I would say no, it does not make any sense, right? So that is how people prefer net income or the earnings as more important than your revenue. Let's have a look at the key differences between the revenue and the earnings. Revenue is basically the ability of the firm to use or generate income. It is used to generate what we call as income and to earn better returns, right? And earnings, if you see on the other hand, is the profit of the firm. It is what? It is the profit of the firm by doing daily business activities. Revenue is basically related to the top line. If you see, it's a top line of the company, and earning is related to the bottom line of the income statement or the profits of the company. If you see for the revenue, it can be calculated by multiplying the number of unit into price per unit, and earnings basically can be calculated by difference between the revenue minus any sort of expenses, taxes, depreciation or interest that has been paid. Revenue denotes the operating income, and earnings, on the other hand, earnings denotes the financial profitability. Revenue has, we just understood, lower preference, and earning is given much more higher preference by the companies, as it is the inflow to the firm and it adds to the profitability of the firm. So let me make my final thoughts on this particular topic. Revenue and earnings, they both are really vital. They are important in their respective term, and they both have revenue. They both, revenue versus earnings, they are what we call as related to the company's inflow of the cash or the liquidity. So by which it helps the company to decide whether the company has, you can say, gains or losses, that you need to decide after computing the net income and the net earnings. Like for instance, there may be a pharma company, right? There may be a pharmaceutical store. You were to define the revenue and earnings for the store. So revenue is what you get from the people buying medicines from the store, and earning is the profit that you derive after reducing all the costs, that is expenses and taxes, that is involved to purchase those medicines and generate income eventually. Question for the firm is answered simple. Are the revenues and earnings same? The answer is in capital letters, no. Using revenue and earning is the most basic way to know and improve the money inflow of the company during a particular period and define the top and the bottom line of the company. So that's it for this particular topic. Thank you everyone for joining the session.